Okay, hi everyone. My name is Katy Axel, and my presentation is called How to Be a Human Being. At the beginning of TBB, I was dead set on being a brain surgeon. The only book I brought on this trip is called Do No Harm, and it's an account of a renowned brain surgeon, Henry Marsh, and his successes and failures in the field. I was fascinated by the power of the brain, and I wanted to understand how the complexities of the brain controlled all of our internal systems as humans. I had a plan, and I like sticking to my plans. But this is an account of what happens to plans when you take a gap year. So I'm going to start with a couple stories. The first one is from South Africa. And while we were in South Africa, we worked with a palliative care organization called Plet Aid, which was located in Kwanakatula Township. My work partner Maddie and I shadowed the caregiver Clara. At the time, Clara was pregnant, and Maddie wasn't fond of the work we were doing. So I happily got to perform most of the observations we did on the patients in all the homes we visited. So I would take their blood pressure and their blood sugar, and then I would sit down and I would listen as Clara talked to the patients in Afrikaans about how they were actually feeling. One patient stood out in particular to me. She was a woman, and we visited her often. She was bedridden or wheelchair-ridden when she wasn't laying down. She had tuberculosis and hypertension and high blood pressure and diabetes and possibly more ailments that have slipped my mind. In one visit, I spent about half an hour organizing her pills into a pill jar. And I had to take all of her pills out of the pill jar because they were already disorganized, and then I had to bring the new pills that Clara had brought for her new regime and organize them into there. And at the end, she was probably taking more than 10 pills a day for all of her various ailments. On another visit, I observed Clara and the woman's full-time caregiver bathe her while she was laying in bed. And I saw her in her most vulnerable state. And in this moment, I felt both helpless and hopeless for her conditions to improve. And after we left that day, I asked Clara, "How old is that woman?" And Clara said 47. And I immediately put her life in perspective with my own parents and even my own grandparents, who are all self-sufficient. And not to disclose any of their ages, but if the conditions were reversed, they would all be well into their years of being cared for full-time. And so what aspect of the South African public healthcare system is failing this woman? Why aren't there adequate measures in place to address preventative care, to ensure people do not become bedridden at age 47? So I'll tell one more story about working in India. We worked in Dharamshala and we worked in preschools that were run by the Interdisciplinary Childhood Development Scheme, which is a government-run program that works to holistically improve children's potential by both stabilizing their home life and exposing them to classroom settings at a young age. So the students I worked with were between 2 and 3 years old, and I would play simple games with them in attempts to prompt them to say both Hindi and English phrases, and also work on simple social interaction skills. Although I have doubts about my progress, and the retention rate of itsy bitsy spiders probably not guaranteed, I was most disappointed by witnessing the use of corporal punishment in the classroom. Both the teacher and the assistant teacher would routinely slap the children on the cheek or the back when they were non-complacent in the classroom or upset another student. And the paradox of this was they would also slap the children on the cheek or the back when they did something right. And although I could distinguish the tone of the teacher's voice between the two different types of slaps, young children cannot often differentiate varying situations, especially when they have the same consequence. This sends incredibly mixed signals, and I often thought that the use of corporal punishment was only perpetrating the behavioral problems because the students were so accustomed to the slaps and they almost seemed not affected. Corporal punishment, an accepted and still practiced form of discipline in much of India. So what do these stories have in common? Well, they both highlight a problem we discussed through the TBB curriculum and fieldwork. The first shows a glimpse into how lack of resources and funding in South Africa's healthcare system is often inadequate and leaves patients sometimes permanently affected in adverse situations. And the second one highlighted a specific instance that is extremely prevalent all over India. Corporal punishment, while it is banned on paper, is still practiced and preached. This specific example is just one of many that falls under the realm of oppressive education, an issue we discussed in depth through literature, seminar, and experience in India. So while I was experiencing all these issues in real time, I conceptualized them as flaws in the system. It's easy to blame these big systems, especially when I didn't understand them. I thought of public health, education, and the environment, the main challenges TBB addresses, as entities separate from people. I believed every issue was black and white. And by that, I mean, if there's a problem, there has to be a solution. I knew these big issues influenced people, but I didn't fully understand that people have not only created, but guided the direction of all of these systems completely. When I stepped back and I thought about what the unifying factor in all of the experiences I was having, I kept coming back to this idea of being human and my initial fascination with the complexity of the human brain. I began to think about all my experiences in field work and seminars and with host families as understanding the nuances in human nature. In using the term human nature, I believe it to be the internal and external struggle we face in comprehending the sheer complexity of our brains, or what we are really capable of as people. So could it be that our very nature of being human is so contradicting that it first is responsible for creating interdisciplinary social problems, and then prohibits the eradication of the social issues that are so evident in our necessary systems? These systems we talk about, public health and education and environmental sustainability, are complex and oftentimes plagued with structural challenges. But understanding the root of these structural challenges oftentimes means delving into the social aspects. These systems are lined with oppression, which is because as humans, we categorize all of our identities into being either superior or inferior, meaning only some people can receive the benefits from these systems that we all rely on. How can we as humans, with all of our contradicting and confusing behaviors, begin to turn the tables and effect change on the oppressive systems that we have complacently let affect us for so long? The questions I asked initially about the healthcare system and oppressive education begin to look slightly different. Could the woman in South Africa whose life has been permanently affected by lack of healthcare actually be an example of negligence on her part and not a failing healthcare system? And are my cultural biases about the long-term repercussions of corporal punishment more important or valid than the long-standing traditions in Indian culture? So my next thought was, what can I do with this knowledge and perspective I'm gaining? Because as you know, I like plans, and my original path to becoming a brain surgeon was fading quickly. I started to think how I can use my fascination with the human body and brain to understand the bigger picture of what people can actually do, the tangible actions, outside of the realm of the sheer scientific miracles, like sparking social movements or creating an environmentally sustainable world. So I've crafted a new plan. I want to explore how we as humans can learn to use our complex and contradicting nature that is stitched into every social system we have created to find connection and collaboration among ourselves and the big systems. I want to combat the issues that I witnessed through traveling, such as a patient whose life was permanently affected and oppressive education practices like corporal punishment, by combining the concepts. Education can be used to improve healthcare, and vice versa, healthcare can be used to improve education. How can I use my fascination with the human body and medicine to change across sectors and for the greater goal of sustaining life? And if you haven't already guessed, because I've made it blatantly obvious and it's straightforward and clear, I plan on achieving these ambitions by creating my own hospital. Well, actually, many hospitals. So I made a brochure, and you can check it out. I'll give you a couple minutes to read through it. Okay, so these are my ideas. Obviously not an end-all solution. Rudimentary healthcare systems that, in my opinion, do need to be improved. The U.S. being one that needs the most help. And I do believe healthcare is a human right. But the main problem is the lack of connection between the big system problems. So my plan, which was highlighted on the brochure, works to address all of the social structure problems holistically. I don't know what the exact solution is going to look like, and I know it won't exactly look like what I've laid out, but I am committed to working towards whatever the solution will be, which will look incredibly different in each community. I still have many questions, a few of which are highlighted, but through TBB, I've become much more aware of how challenging it will be to be an effective agent of change and social entrepreneur. I need to learn to ask for help, and I need to accept my fate as a human and the complex and contradicting path that ensues. So I'm going to wrap up with a poem I wrote, which is entitled System of Life. Preschool. My teacher made a video collage of pictures set to the Green Day song, Good Riddance. 14 years later, and every time I hear the song, I start a slideshow in my mind, playing every moment of my life that has impacted me, usually in ways I cannot recognize automatically. When I listened to the song most recently, knee-deep in reflection about my most current epiphanies, I came to the conclusion that being human is one goddamn hard task. What does that mean? I'm not really sure, but let's back up for a minute and think about how I got here. Imagine. There are two tracks. One carrying who we are as individual beings. The nervous, the circulatory, and endocrine are all different systems working under the control of one brain. Humans not only function, but succeed, because all of these internal systems communicate, allowing us to bleed, also fighting off all the bad germs that we cannot see. And the other encompasses all the things that we need. How do we get food and water and a space to call our own and possibly even clean? But humans got greedy, and what we have decided we need looks a lot different from what that really means. This reality consists of a bigger system, one with tall buildings and fat checks and an ugly concept called the glass ceiling. And as people, aren't we separate from these constructed beings? Healthcare and education and the environment, we say we need them. But then again, doesn't that mean we have to be in them? I used to be both cynical and critical and said if there's a problem, there's a solution and a way to achieve it. But then I saw cardboard as a means of insulation, protecting a child dying of malnutrition. And I saw street sweeper as a legitimate occupation, and I heard boys who could not behave with a respectable disposition. And what does this mean? How could I think humans were separate from all social sector systems? Well, we grow up thinking we must be one thing. In American culture, we strive to be smarter and taller and walk around with thicker wallets, and we are constantly competing for a trophy or title that doesn't exist. Individualism is idolized, and I totally believed it. We're taught to think the systems are separate and we have to run our course without interaction from other people or organizations or even Mother Nature. But I believe the tracks have to collide. We need to open our eyes. Human nature is stitched into everything we have created and destroyed on this big blue planet that is ours, not by choice. So both systems define us, biological and social, and we have no one else to blame but ourselves for all of the inequalities and disparities and failures. I like to think it's our complex minds working in overdrive to figure ourselves out and the world around us, and the gears keep on turning and we keep on creating, putting more and more stuff into a system that keeps on failing. How do we pick ourselves up and clean up the mess that our very nature has created? Well, I believe in one theory that conveys the matter simply. Thanks to an ingenious French revolutionary, the law of conservation of mass states that all that we are has been here eternally, and as long as the planet spins, will continue flowing perpetually. We share the same energy as the birds and the leaves, and in order to keep living, we must not keep separating. We can learn to coalesce our individual minds into a world more complex with higher order thinking. Systems need to merge, just like I suggested through human. In order to solve problems, we need integration. I learned how to fall, but I didn't fall down. I was caught up in the issues that look straightforward on paper. But I learned to peel back the words, because what use is the paper when the tree that fell down to make it is no longer supporting life? Why don't we throw the words out into the air? Because then hopefully someone will hear and swallow their fears that create biases and live by those words that we need to liberate us. Now, before I graduate TBB, I'm challenging my assumptions in a way I've never done so deeply. One more time, I'm listening to Green Day and finishing the lyric that so often has comforted me, now moving me to say, it's something unpredictable, but in the end it's right. I hope you had the time of your life. And in that time, I hope you learned that our internal energy threads together life from all different systems. And we need to depend on the power of connection to overcome our innate nature stitched with contradiction, in order to look back at the end of our time and say we lived a life not of perfection, but one that worked to sustain all of creation. Thank you. Yeah.
Where do you find spaces to meaningfully express your complexity?
I think you can do that anywhere. And I definitely believe in kind of this connection we have with everything around us. And in order to kind of delve into that, I think you need to explore it however that way works for you. Yes, and that could be talking to other people or through art or literature or whatever speaks to you. Yeah.
Katy, you spoke of the sort of the pitfalls of individualism in our society.
Mhm.
Who are your partners in this new world that you plan on, you hope to be able to create, the things you want to do? Who are your partners?
Everyone. I mean, I think that was kind of my point. Like, we all need to work together in order to make kind of these systems, but that what we need effective and efficient and comforting for all of us as individuals. But I think that can be done in a collective space.
Have you seen evidence of it anywhere?
What evidence of
This
collaboration? I'm hinting at it. I think, yeah, there's definitely specific examples when I believe actually like human interaction and going out and talking to people is much more effective than doing it virtually or across seas or anything. And we talk about this idea of what is development a lot in TBB, and kind of coming to the realization that these grassroots movements within local communities that brings people together who normally would have opposing opinions or differing thoughts about a solution tends to be the most effective way to promote change.
Can you talk a little bit about the relation, I'm going to call it the relationship between the macro and the micro? So the small, the situation you just spoke about would be, in my mind, the micro, and what's the relationship of that to globalization in a macro sense? That makes sense? Is it?
Yeah. So I believe kind of this human nature is the micro, and we all have it. It connects us all of the kind of energy I talk about, which is actually like matter, that connects us all, and we all think about it individually. But when you combine that, and that kind of like creates a powerhouse almost, and like through connection, then you can break out and you can solve these macro issues that kind of surround us. Yeah.
So it sounds like you're going to continue your idea of medicine.
Yes.
Okay. And so how are you going to imagine a traditional medical school?
Yeah.
You see where I'm going?
Yeah.
With that? Yes. So,
what is my plan?
yeah, how do you plan to plan in a traditional medical school environment that may not be organized around the way that you feel the opportunity should be for you?
I mean, I don't have a big aversion to typical medical school, because I believe that you want to be a doctor, you have to go to medical school and you have to learn like. But I think Paul Farmer was really inspirational to me in reading his book Mountains Beyond Mountains, or the book that talks about him. He kind of talks about this idea where he'd go to medical school, but then he'd go into the field and he'd apply what he's learning firsthand right there. And he was crafting this idea while being in medical school. And like, that's to me a perfect combination of learning something, learning the facts, and then like getting that base and then using it. You know, so that would be awesome to do. I don't know if that's possible, but definitely gaining as much real world experience in medical opportunities as I can, and then combining that with medical school and undergrad learning environments. Yeah.
So to follow on to that question, and in terms of bringing your proposal to fruition with regard to education, are you still thinking that you would specialize in neurosurgery, or are you thinking now that you'd be more of a general practice doctor and internist?
Yeah, so I'd love to do brain surgery, but maybe later. But so yeah, right now the current plan is more a general practitioner. I'm really interested also in maternal care and OB/GYN path as well, because I think that's a large issue that affects a lot of women in developing nations.
Do you even need medicine to do the healing you're talking about? In other words, we're talking about bringing
Yeah.
disparate groups together into a mutual understanding.
Yeah, I think definitely not. We don't need medicine to combine these issues and to combine people, but I see that's my path into it, and that's what I'm interested in, and that's what I want to focus on and use to combine. Thank you.
So if you haven't gotten the news, we're all gonna gather in room 107 to watch a spectacular slideshow of TBB staff. We'll see you there in a few minutes.
Hey Simon, I haven't seen you the whole time. I want to say hello. How are you doing?
Pretty good.
Good. I was looking to see if well, I don't know.
I think we share.
I think we'll be watching the YouTube versions of all these that have been recorded. Yeah.
Oh, right.
No doubt.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that.
Yeah. We'll have the opportunity. We can all see things we didn't want to. We kill the time.
Especially they had a great job.
Well, let's just keep the momentum going, right?
It is, it's really interesting.
I'm Dimitri's mom. And
Yes, how do you do?
We adopted Dimitri.
Oh, okay.
Is experiencing, I'm not a specialist in that area, but
Right. We've all sort of had on the job training.
yeah, a lot of the workshops.
Yeah.
And you know, it's interesting too, because it was 5 months of traveling, you know, so you- but it's still there.
It's a different place. We heard that we have great parents, but there's a sense of loss. And we maybe it's
No, Simon doesn't have a passport, unfortunately, for leaders.
Oh, that's Dimitri's, okay.
You know, that's always interesting. We were having all these thoughts that, you know, it's not. A bunch of things can happen. Frustrating, walking down, you see, whoop,